Yeah, I just want to give a kind of call out specifically to the employee who hasn't used AI before. If you have fear thinking could replace me, or I could lose my job, or any of that fear, the way to fix that is just to become literate. Because even if your specific job role you are in now becomes maybe unnecessary in the future because there are these AI skills, you're going to be in such a better employable position if you have those basic AI literacy skills. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if in 10 years' time it was almost like a requirement on every job application.
Adam, hello.
Hey Liam, thanks for having me.
Of course. I wanted to jump straight in. Seen this in your LinkedIn. I built a business from scratch and sold it to HubSpot in just 17 months. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, it's wild, really. It's lovely to look back on in hindsight, and you look back on those decisions you make at different steps that lead towards that great exit. But looking back at it at the time, it's not an intentional, well executed thing of starting the business and saying 17 months down the line we're going to get here. I was working at the time as a salesperson. I was working in the semiconductor industry, and I spent quite a lot of time doing outbound through LinkedIn. This was like early 2023, and I started seeing all this like really excited hype and buzz around AI, following creators at the time like Zane Khan, Martin Crowley, like seeing all this cool stuff. And at the same time, my best friend Matt Village was working at a copywriter, and we were both like, enjoying our jobs or whatever, but we'd always wanted to go and build something together. So I'd done a bunch of research into the success of The Hustle, The Milk Road, Morning Brew, like these newsletters, and I was getting really into the newsletter industry. And then something just sort of like clicked in my head, and I realized that I've got this like best friend that I want to do a business with who's a great copywriter. I'm seeing all these creators grow on LinkedIn talking about AI content, and I was just like playing around with AI to try and improve my job. But I was finding that the sort of solutions and the answers out there weren't really very applicable. There's a lot of like AI hype. There's a lot of sort of 30-second clips shared of these tools that do these amazing things. And then when you actually try and implement them into your business, you can't get those sort of changes that are promised. And that was kind of the groundwork to starting Mindstream. Like the AI report, it's a daily AI newsletter, and we were really going out and trying to target people like myself. I was almost creating the product for me. I wanted to stay up to date with what's going on with AI, learn about some tools that I could use in my work, and also use in my personal life. So we kind of created the product for me and for Matt, and then just started writing. And you talk about exit to HubSpot 17 months later. It was just those small stages. It was, can we make enough money to leave our job? We did that in 3 months. And then next major inflection point was we secured some investment. And then soon after that, we acquired one of our competitors and actually merged their newsletter into ours, which took us from 15 to 100,000 subscribers sort of overnight. And those sort of 3 stages were done by the end of 2023. So we went into 2024 with quite a large newsletter that we could monetize quite well. We made some great partnerships with a load of advertisers, and just really like hit the ground running in 2024. And then talking about HubSpot, we met HubSpot when they started advertising with us in February. And then soon after that, we started beginning the conversations about an acquisition.
Unreal. I want to wind things back to that first 15K. What were you using as your main kind of growth tactic at that point? Because obviously you were without funding, you're still both working your kind of same jobs. Was that intimately tied to LinkedIn growth as well? What did that look like at the time?
Yeah, LinkedIn was so instrumental in the early days. Our goal when we started was just, can we find like the initial subscribers? Like, can I persuade 100 people, 200 people, 500 people to join the newsletter? And we started doing that. At the start, me and Matt put £500 in to start the business. So we had £1,000 of runway. So none of that was used for subscriber acquisition. It was just maintaining a few like early SaaS costs. So I was creating content every day on LinkedIn, trying to generate subscribers for Mindstream. And then quickly my LinkedIn account started growing pretty fast, almost disproportionately to the newsletter. I think when we had maybe 1,000 subscribers on the newsletter, we had like 10 15,000 followers on my LinkedIn account. And we were pulling subscribers across to the newsletter at a decent rate, but LinkedIn was still becoming this quite substantial thing. And our early relationships with advertisers, they actually reached out inbound to the LinkedIn account and said, "Can we partner? Can you promote our tool, our service on your LinkedIn account?" And that's kind of how it started. That's how we started getting our early revenue. And as soon as we had that revenue coming in, we suddenly had money to then go and spend on paid acquisition to grow the newsletter. So the LinkedIn account became a subscriber generator. It also became our main revenue driver, and it became our inbound source of leads to then grow the newsletter.
Your LinkedIn account growing so rapidly at that time, do you think that's replicable in today's age, considering the amount of people talking about LinkedIn right now, or talking about AI on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think it's replicable. I think it's even easier potentially. There are some great creator accelerators out there that you can go and use. I mean, when I started on LinkedIn, I bought Lara Acosta's How to LinkedIn guide for $50 and just kind of went through that step by step. Now the plays to be successful on LinkedIn today are very, very similar, but someone like Lara Acosta now has these kind of guided cohorts you can go for. So if you've got a little bit of money to invest, you can spend with her. I know Chris Donnelly has another great one as well. And you literally get exact day by day guidance on how to build your LinkedIn account. Even if you don't have the money, you can just follow these creators. There's so many of them out there creating content on LinkedIn, teaching you how to grow on LinkedIn. And it's pretty formatic. I am the exact case study of somebody who was even learning the art of what I was talking about on LinkedIn in order to talk about it. I didn't come into starting Mindstream as being a real AI expert that had been, in this technology before anyone else knew about it. I was just a dude who was curious in AI and thought, okay, well, in order to create content on LinkedIn, I kind of need to learn what I'm doing. So that's what I did. That's how it happened. If you're a subject matter expert, it's even easier because you can just focus on how to do the LinkedIn thing. You kind of have the knowledge. So yeah, I'd say it's easier than ever. When you're inside the LinkedIn bubble and you're seeing all these creators, you might feel like it's overcrowded. But if you kind of analyze LinkedIn up against Instagram or Facebook or all these other socials, the ratio of creators to users is so small on LinkedIn compared to all these other socials. So it's very, very early days still. And there's a huge opportunity to still get that organic growth today.
Yeah, you touched on something interesting there about pretty much just being one step ahead of everyone else. You were creating content about the things that you were learning about. And we kind of talked to a lot of people with that imposter syndrome where they're like, I don't know what I can talk about to people. And it's like, okay, do you know how ChatGPT works? You've got basic understanding of automations. You even know what Perplexity is. Cool, you can go and teach all of those things to millions of other people that haven't taken that first step. So there's definitely loads of value just out there existing, and people need to realize that en masse, people don't know about AI still. We're still very early, and we are in a bit of a bubble right now.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's so easy when you're in the space to assume that everybody is at the cutting edge. Very, very few people are at the cutting edge, and the majority of people out there are just looking for small things they can do to improve their daily workflows or their daily operation. I think there is so much pressure on the average employee or the average manager, whether it comes from externally or internally or down from leadership, to become AI literate or to these, a CEO will see someone post on LinkedIn about how they save this time or they double their revenue, and they're just kind of feeding this down through the levels of employment, saying we need a little bit of this. And as you know, and as I know, you can make huge gains from small implementation of AI, and that's all that people are looking for, or at least the majority of people are looking for. So you don't have to be at the level of these insane engineers who are at the breaking neck of AI to create valuable AI content. You can create ChatGPT 101, ChatGPT for beginners, and have a huge audience who is looking for, that information wrapped in a really nice, digestible format.
Yeah. And I feel the pressure as well. I mean, I've been involved in the industry 2 years. I speak to entrepreneurs every single day, but I still feel the pressure of being on Twitter, looking at everything being released every day. I'm like, all right, I've got to get my hands on that, my hands on this, and understand how this works and have to do automations with Clay and understand how Manus works as an operator. And I'm sitting there like, I do this as a full-time job and I can't keep up, which I think leads to an interesting question. You are an educator through your LinkedIn, through your newsletter, through everything you do. How do you meet people where they're at and take them to the next step with your education, with your content?
I think you need to be able to have a bigger view, like a wider view of sort of the average person. You know, when you're deep in creating content on LinkedIn or deep in creating content for your newsletter, like you are pulled towards that cutting edge. And whilst it might be interesting to say, like, look, this is happening, you sort of put that type of content in a box of inspiration. So some of the AI content you can do is just be like, look at this cool thing. And then you have another box, a much more useful box, I think, of here's something you can do today, right? Here's something you can do today. And I think a lot of that training and a lot of that education is not even limited to a specific tool, right? It might just be like prompting for ChatGPT or Claude or DeepSeek or whatever it is you want to use. It's just like, how can you think about prompting, or how can you think about using these AI tools, or even going like a step further back, how can you look at your daily workflow and sort of analyze where you might want to go and focus your improvements. I think a lot of people assume, like, if you are a copywriter for a newspaper, then you should spend a load of time using AI to improve your copywriting. But the copywriting is the thing you're really good at. Like, I'm sure even a copywriter isn't spending 100% of their day copywriting. They're going to be spending 80% of their day doing things that they're not necessarily good at, or they don't enjoy. And that's really where you should double down and go, okay, can I make these things a little bit easier to free myself up to think more about copywriting?
Yeah, interesting. I want to talk hypotheticals for a second, and just see kind of your reaction from this. So, I'm a medium-sized organization in the US. We are, for example, like a basic healthcare supplier company. And we come to you, Adam, and we're like, we know AI is happening, we know we can make improvements, but we don't even know where to start. Where would you kind of like lead us in the conversation? Where would you start us? What would you suggest?
I think if you want to get buy-in from 50 people in an organization, now I think even understanding what you want is the first question. You know, is that organization looking for their COO to have AI literacy, or are they looking for the whole organization to have AI literacy? Let's assume it's the latter. So first, you need to kind of, as you say, meet them where they're at and understand what the kind of general feeling is from employees towards AI. Do they even understand what it is at its core? Do they understand how they can use it to make small gains? Have they even tried to use it ever in any format? So you need to understand where they're at a starting point, and let's assume they follow like the general usage worldwide, which I think is like, maybe 10% of people have used AI or ChatGPT or whatever. So you assume 10% of the organization are using it. Maybe if they're an organization in like America or UK, you can assume it's slightly higher. But when you have an organization of people and some of them don't even use AI, then you got to go right to the beginning, right? And you got to go into that organization and first sort of inspire people by what AI can do. So show them some examples of companies at a similar size who have had these sorts of improvements. I think also there is like a general fear to AI that people have because of all these headlines of like, AI is going to replace you, AI is AI is replacing so many people a year, like all of these things. So it's also quite important to show people what AI can't do. I think that's really, really key. And show show people how good use cases of AI is you have an employee who's utilizing it to then improve their output. Maybe you can do like a comparison of like employee with AI and then just like AI on its own, and just kind of see how it breaks. So there's like the inspiration, there's sort of challenging the fear. And once you've done those two things, you might be able to even get those employees to think, okay, I'm happy to even consider this. And then you go in with just like some basic training. So like some basic understanding of what AI can do, how to use the basic, like, ChatGPT. I'd even just start there, how to kind of do some initial prompting. And then when you've got that done, the hard thing, and the thing that even I struggle with, is being able to kind of analyze your workflows that you're going through and understanding where you should implement AI and where you shouldn't. So having I don't know if you have everyone in the organization, but having some people in the organization that someone can go to and say, hey, I do this every day. Is there anywhere you'd think, anywhere you'd recommend I go and start thinking about AI? It's a lot of these building blocks, and it's certainly not just pointing them towards the next tool.
I think you're experiencing the same thing that we have as well. To give you an example, we have co-produced courses and teach for an organization called SHRM. So largest human resources organization on the planet, they're based in the US. And we run through cohorts with like thousands of kind of business owners in the US, everything from like 10-person companies up to 1,000. And it always starts with the same thing. It's like you got to get stakeholder buy-in, which is like employee buy-in. You've got to get people excited about it, and to have them understand that it's going to give them 10 times more output. It's not going to replace 10 of them, right? It's like people have that fear, and that fear is like reasonable because there's probably a lot of entrepreneurs, founders, and businesses out there being like, right, I'm going to just replace 5 of you immediately because I've got AI, and they're just going about it the wrong way. So rather than empowering employees, they're just replacing them. And we've all seen, if you like build with AI, if you work with AI, you need a human in the loop. It's much more effective if you have a human in the loop and you're not just going from one automation to the next. So yeah, it's something we've experienced as well. You really do need employee buy-in, and you can start with the basics. Just get people excited about it. Like when I give people advice about this for their companies, if they're a consulting company or whatever it is, I always say you got to get people excited about it, right? You got to go show them some basic use cases, get them hyped up about it, get them wanting to use it and not so afraid of it. Like that is 100% the first step there.
Yeah, I just want to give a kind of call out specifically to the employee who hasn't used AI before. If you have fear thinking AI could replace me, or I could lose my job, or any of that fear, the way to fix that is just to become literate. Because even if your specific job role you are in now becomes maybe unnecessary in the future because there are these AI skills, you're going to be in such a better employable position if you have those basic AI literacy skills. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if in 10 years' time it was almost like a requirement on every job application. So even if you have that fear, use that fear to kind of educate yourself a little bit and just get that literacy, because it's going to benefit you whatever you go on to do in the future.
100% agree. 100% agree. I want to lead things back because I'm very curious about this as a newsletter operator myself, about the different methods you use to monetize and kind of what you've found works and doesn't work. So you mentioned at the start kind of placing advertisements in the newsletter on your personal LinkedIn. Did you have other methods that you were monetizing through? What was a good idea? What was a bad idea?
So we monetize exclusively through advertisement. As you referenced, we had newsletter advertisement and LinkedIn advertisement. We considered doing a premium newsletter, and when we acquired AutoGPT, our competitor, they had one operational. It was quite small at the time, but they had one operational. And the first thing I did is shut it down. Or we didn't completely shut it down. We just stopped advertising it and just kind of ran it out for those users. I was very focused when I was building Mindstream on having kind of clear focus and doing the things we did well. I knew that the sponsorship model works. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of case studies of people making successful businesses, successful newsletter businesses with sponsorships. There are times when a premium newsletter or premium community or something along that line really is the right business model. And I think that is when you have a niche topic with a real subject matter expert operating, because they can provide that value that you kind of want to put behind a paywall. We were going after, whilst AI is a niche, it's quite a broad niche and it's applicable to everyone. So we were going for as many subscribers as we can get, maintain good engagement for them, build trust for them, and then work with good advertisers that provide value to our audience. So they're kind of very, very different business models. And you can do both. There are good examples of companies doing both, but I think you have to be really careful of diversifying to too many revenue streams and then not being able to do one of them well. And we were a small team, we were a growing team, we were monetizing effectively through advertisement, and I didn't want to dilute that, and I didn't want to dilute our focus.
If you're monetizing effectively, the advertisers must have seen a really good kind of product market fit. So talk to me a little bit more about who was Mindstream's audience and what was your kind of niche in this area with the likes of like the Rundown, Superhuman, the AI Report, and everyone else that you're on.
Yeah, so we were a little bit later than those newsletters you mentioned. I mean, we started June 23. I think a lot of them started late 22 or like very, very early 23. And yeah, around this time last year, we were sitting at like 150,000 subscribers, compared to most of our competitors had like 500,000-600,000. So we were in a different boat to these bigger newsletters. And honestly, the way that we maintained a solid monetization through sponsorship is by maybe undercutting you guys a little bit. So we kind of kept our rates a little bit lower than industry standard. And the rationale behind that was we would provide better metrics than our competitors. So whether an advertiser is working on like cost per lead, cost per click, cost per mile, like whatever they were working against, we were able to provide them really, really good results and then get those advertisers locked up for long-term deals. So we had a very low advertiser churn. Like majority of our advertisers came to us and then stayed with us, and we were able to kind of look at these long-term deals. I mentioned we do sponsorship on LinkedIn. So we had 2 substantial LinkedIn accounts with mine and my co-founder Matt's. We also grew my other co-founder Mattitz's. So we had 3 LinkedIn accounts eventually. And we did sponsorship on there. We also did some live events. So we were able to offer really nice bundles across all of these metrics. And then through all of that, it meant that we didn't have to have a sales team. We never did any outbound. I mean, it's a little bit of a lie. We tried outbound and it didn't work. So all of our advertisers came to us through inbound. I was able to look after those relationships whilst still managing all of the other parts of the business. And yeah, whenever I thought, okay, I think we could increase our prices substantially, and like I kind of analyzed the idea of hiring like a really good account manager and salesperson and whatever. The balance didn't really stack up. We were able to be competitive by having very, very competitive rates and having those long-term relationships with the advertisers.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear. I mean, we experienced the same thing. I ran ads for us for a long time as well. The first kind of year, I was like writing a newsletter, doing ads, and doing a lot of other stuff operationally. And the majority of people, what they're looking for is that return on ad spend. So like that CPA is like the biggest metric of success for them. You do get a few companies like your Notion and stuff like that are looking more for like impressions and working with influencers, but the majority of advertisers we're working with, it's like, okay, we've got monetization on the back end. Can we get a return on this? And it just kind of changes depending on how big the company is. And for us, the bigger the company, the better they can monetize and the more they can spend on that acquisition number.
Yeah, and you've got to be kind of you've got to be honest about what you can deliver. So I think a lot of the time people compare against competitors on like those top line metrics like CPM and cost per click. But even though that might be like a benchmark for what you should charge, it's not necessarily going to provide success for your advertisers. And when you have these larger companies who are spending like loads and loads of money on direct ads, they're spending loads of money on influencer marketing, and they have all these different marketing sources, you're going to end up in a spreadsheet, and you're either going to be green or red on that spreadsheet. So you got to make sure that you don't get too greedy and adjust your pricing too ruthlessly, that you end up in the red, because then you're just kind of kicked off the bottom of the list. And we did, the way we structured our pricing externally was based on CPM. So it was always tempting every time we kind of hit a new like little subscriber growth, extra 10,000 subscribers or whatever, to go and increase your prices like ever so instrumentally. But I found it more beneficial to lock these advertisers into pricing based on where we were today. And then over time, your results in theory are improving for them. And that also counteracts, like one of the problems with newsletter advertising is you price yourself based on the core list you have of like 200,000. Let's just say, for example, 200,000. You price yourself based on that, and then an advertiser advertises with you that month. Next month they advertise with you again. They're going to see reduced returns because the core of the audience is the same. Even if you're adding new subscribers, losing subscribers, the core of the audience is the same. So you got, if you are increasing your prices all the time, but you're not recycling too much of that audience regularly, your advertisers' returns are going to reduce. So balancing those relationships and having that real kind of customer success manager relationship with your advertisers was so key for us, because we were able to build on those good relationships. Just one other thing I'll make on that. We were very, very aggressive with cleaning our list. So if anyone didn't engage, like open or click on our list in, I think it's 50 days, we took them off the list completely. So we were like actively and manually scrubbing our list with an automation that was happening all the time. And we could have, our top line number of subscribers could have been almost really as high as we wanted to. But again, if you do that and inflate your prices as such, you can end up suddenly being unviable for these advertisers.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that, because we do the same thing as well. As if no one clicks within 30 days, then they're kind of cycled out of it. So we currently sent a list of 400,000 roughly, but we've got around 900,000 subscribers on that whole list. We just don't send the 500,000 of them because we're like, you're not engaged. So we can start running campaigns for reactivation sequences and stuff like that. But I mean, really what we're trying to do is like build a core audience.
Yes.
Of really, really strong, engaged people that actually get a lot of value out of that, because those are the people that are going to give you feedback, click on ads, and ultimately provide value to you and have a good conversation with. And I think people realize like the churn with newsletters as well. Like when you get to a certain size, just to stay at the same number, you're going to have to be, I think we have to add maybe 40, 50,000 subscribers per month to stay at that 400K mark. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, I can't speak to how other newsletter operators run, but there are newsletters out there that add as many subscribers as they can, as cheaply as they can. Don't worry too much about engagement. The other thing you have to think about is if you have this sort of not so engaged list, you can also affect the deliverability of that list. So I think there's a way to operate a newsletter where you can acquire subscribers so cheaply, and then go and sell ads against these newsletters to companies who are kind of impressed by the list size and the metrics you're able to offer. But I just can't imagine that the results are going to be that good for these advertisers. So then you've got to have a sales team working on bringing in like 30 net new clients every month, because you're churning your clients so fast. So, I do think we could have grown more aggressively. I do think we could have grown faster, and I do think we could have made more money than we did in the short term. But we would have been building something that at its core was almost broken. It's not too long term, I don't think.
Apart from the offer and the pricing structure and the way you kind of instrumented everything there, was there anything different about Mindstream specifically in terms of brand that kind of set you apart from the competition?
Yeah. So when we set up Mindstream, we used to sign off every newsletter, and we've recently reinstated this by written by humans. So we were very, very careful with our editorial, and we prioritized editorial. We had somebody writing the newsletter every day who was at their core a copywriter, and then one of the first hires we made was a second copywriter. So we had this excellent editorial team and talent that were doing the job of surfing the web every day to find out what was going on, and then summarizing it, curating it, but adding some real editorial and journalistic insight. When we kind of analyzed other AI newsletters in the space, we genuinely believe that we had the best editorial. A lot of AI newsletters I found were kind of just doing a very good job of curating what was going on, but it was the core of the newsletter was, here is what's happened. And we were kind of doing, here is what happened, and we're going to make you laugh about it maybe, and then also here's what it means for you. So we were trying to give more with the editorial value. And that was at the core of everything we did. The copywriters and editorial teams spent a large proportion of their day studying other newsletters, and not just in the AI space. We had this funnel of newsletters that we were studying to find different things, and we were constantly looking at branding, editorial, cycling through new features, analyzing analyzing click-through rate across various features, and like taking out the worst performing, adding a new one in. So we spent a lot of time on editorial. I'm sure other newsletters do this as well, but I think that we did a pretty good job of it.
Interesting. From your conversations with audience, from the feedback from the audience, is the value in that editorial work and the translation of here's why this matters to you, what's the biggest thing the audience is getting out of it?
I think almost it's like a emotional connection to the newsletter. I think the Sham Puri said this when he was building the Milk Road. He said that he wanted the Milk Road to be like your smart friend who is just like keeping you up to date with what's going on in crypto. And one of the I remember him saying to his researchers when they were researching sort of articles to curate and summarize, the test they would apply to it is, would you send the link of this article to your mate in a text or in a WhatsApp? And if you wouldn't, it didn't pass the grade. So when you do that level of like editorial research, journalistic, you can build a trust with your audience that they feel like you're really speaking to them and you're really kind of looking at the world through their lens. That's a hard job when you have a broad newsletter. So you need to, as an operator, almost like decide who your reader is and make them kind of one person and then speak to them. It's very difficult because it's quite intangible. Like it's hard to quantify. You can look at open rate metrics and click through rates and response rates and review rates and all of these things, which we did. But at the core of it, we kind of kept asking ourselves those questions: who is our reader? Who are we writing for? What do they need? What do they need as the landscape is changing? And the hope was always that we would build a deeper connection with them, which is going to build that habit that they're going to want to open the newsletter every day. They're going to want to send it to their friends, etc., etc., etc.
Were you and Matt in charge of hiring together?
Yes, yeah. We, early on, we were very, very collaborative in everything we did. I was, at the core of it, I was running the business, and he was the editor in chief. But when you're like 2 or 3 people, everything gets discussed. When we then acquired AutoGPT, Matitz came on board. So he was the owner of AutoGPT, and he came on board as a third co-founder, and we had kind of equal share in the business. So we were a team of 3, and we would meet regularly to have kind of managerial meetings and stuff like that. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, if there was a decision to be made, it would land with me. But I took a lot of it was a very, very open approach between the three co-founders in discussing those bigger business decisions, and it was nice that I could leverage Matitz, who was a technical person at his core. he was very, very analytical, very data driven, whereas I am very kind of emotion driven. And then Matt is also quite a good critical thinker and came from this kind of creative side of things. So we had a really good blend of skills, and I think it set us up quite well for success.
Interesting. At the point you became acquired by HubSpot, how many people did you grow in the business to?
We had, I think we had 10 full-time employees.
Cool. What did you learn about hiring? How did you find the right people? And I'd love, because you, from this conversation, I can get the sense that you were very, very particular about what Mindstream was and what the value you were delivering was. How did you kind of maintain that culture internally as well with these new hires that you were making?
Yeah, it was tough. We made a lot of mistakes. When we first went out to really kind of grow the business and grow the team, we first partnered with a bunch of agencies or freelancers. We had a design agency we were working with. We had a freelancer who was doing our paid growth. We had a freelancer who was working with us on email deliverability. And we were actually trying at the time to do cold email outbound to acquire new subscribers. I still love the idea, but it never worked. So we had these sort of like this structure of freelancers that we were trying to build in. There may be others that I'm forgetting about as well, but it was at its core, these people never cared about my business as much as I did, and that was very, very difficult. They were all kind of they were all good people who did good work, but we were only kind of contracted with them on like a sort of delivery or an hourly basis. So it was hard to really get them motivated. So soon after we sort of built this structure, we broke it all apart and then started hiring full-time employees. We were very casual with our hiring process. Like we just put feelers out on LinkedIn because we had this great distribution, and just I remember doing a job advert where I just said like, "Hi, I'm looking for like cool people. Come and apply. Like, you know what I do because you see me. Like, if you're interested in working with me, like just come have a chat." And we had so much inbound. We had like hundreds of applications from those sorts of call outs, and we were able to find some absolutely amazing team members from like different parts of the world. Maria Garib, who came in as our senior copywriter, she was based in Lebanon, and she just had so much talent, so much education, so much experience, so much like world knowledge, and she brought such a addition to our editorial team. She's now come over to HubSpot with us. HubSpot have relocated her to the UK, which is just insane. I mean, she was working all last year in the middle of the war in her country, and now she's here in the UK working with us. So finding, to kind of answer your question, how did we keep that culture and keep that brand? It was hiring really young, ambitious people, generally from different parts of the world. So we had employees from Lebanon, Pakistan, Philippines, Iran, and we were able to give these people opportunities that they were struggling to get because they weren't from UK or America, and they didn't have necessarily experience in UK or American companies. So they were, struggling to find this premium work, and we were able to pay them like a very, very good rate for where they're from, which for us was more competitive than hiring in the UK or America. And then take this like raw talent and raw energy and really embed them into the culture of the company and get them to believe in the mission and what we were trying to do and the long-term future for Mindstream.
Talk to me about that practically. Are you hosting weekly roundups? Are you putting them through a Notion document? Like, how do you practically get someone to buy into your culture?
Yeah, so I tried to do kind of the formal thing and have like monthly team meetings where we'd kind of go through and talk about all the different aspects of the business, because I wanted people to understand what everyone else was doing. We stopped those meetings. I didn't find them too useful. It was really about doing things that were not necessarily scalable. So, if we got to 50 or 100 employees, we'd have to find a different way to operate. I just spent a lot of time with these people one-on-one, and Matt and Mattis did the same. When Maria joined and she was working with Matt on writing the newsletter, I know that they had a daily call for, I don't know, hour, 2 hours. Like they kind of just work together. They are still doing that now, like 18 months later. They are still spending a lot of time together. The difference is now they go and sit in a coffee shop in town, and because Maria's here in the UK, which is awesome. I did the same with the people who are helping me in my LinkedIn account. And again, I still do that now. I have a daily stand up with my kind of content researcher for our LinkedIn account. So spending a lot of time with these people, trying to help them understand the way that you think is very important. Have you heard of Mr. Beast's idea of like doppelgangers with his training?
Yeah, so he's got it's like the duplicates, the clones. So you just have
Yes.
someone around you all the time. You basically clone yourself, right?
Yeah, so he literally has them come and live in his house and follow him around for 3 months so they can clone him. I'm not as extreme as that, but it's a similar mindset. Spend a lot of time with someone, get them really built in, and we were very, very open about like why we were running Mindstream, how we were running it, how much money we were making, how we were making money, what those relationships were like with our advertisers, what our important metrics were, open click rates, all those things, and just be very open and transparent. And I think people really, I think that our team really bought in on me as a leader and a founder, and then same with Matt and Mattis, with their kind of direct reports. They really bought in on us, and I still, not HubSpot didn't bring the whole team over. A lot of the team we had to let go, and the acquisition was made. But I worked with every employee that we had and was able to place them in another job at another other Western companies. And I still have regular catch-ups with everyone that was employed by Mindstream, and have kind of quite personal relationships with them. So that's how we did it. I don't think it's particularly traditional. I think it's quite powerful if you're running a startup. And then, you'll have to go to someone who's taken it to the next step to understand how you scale that.
I mean, it's potentially the approach for the future with AI empowering everyone and everyone being kind of like cross-functional and having multiple skill sets. Maybe the best way to do that is to just produce doppelgangers and give them an overview of the whole business, because everyone can do multifunctional stuff. It might be the way of training people for the future.
I think so. There were times where I would be very, very busy dealing with something that at the time felt like the most business critical thing. And then I would stop doing that to take time out of my day to spend with an employee and work one-to-one on something that wasn't as important. But the compounding effect of that is huge. When you empower these employees to own something and to think about that thing in the same way that you are as an operator, freed me up. I just, as we grew Mindstream, I became more and more free over time to think on the business rather than in it.
You talk about free time, and I'm assuming with the more free time you have, you get to focus on things that you enjoy more. Talk to me about your least favorite part of growing Mindstream and your favorite part of being part of Mindstream.
Deliverability.
Yep.
Have I struck a nerve there?
Oh man, deep in my soul. Didn't even know I needed to hear that.
Yeah, we spent we for a long time we felt we were like riding this deliverability wave, and still to this day, like I can't succinctly explain to you why we had deliverability problems. I don't think anyone really knows it. I think it's like the LinkedIn, it's like the LinkedIn algorithm. But we, our open rate, we'd have an email that went out and it would have good deliverability and it would get 40 to 45%. The next day we could send an email and it would have bad deliverability and it would be sort of 28, 29. And when I'm working on these advertiser relationships, if someone comes in and buys one ad and then, if this goes well, I'm going to go and buy 10. And then that email with their ad in it gets affected by deliverability for some reason. It doesn't reach the kind of amount of people that would open that email. It was so damaging, and we spent so much of our time like analyzing this and trying out different things. I mean, Matt, our chief editor, probably spent an hour to 2 hours a day working on deliverability for a year. And since we've been acquired by HubSpot, we haven't had bad deliverability once. It's wild. And our open rate has gone from like 38, 39% on average to like close to 50 because we're not having those drops. So the average is just sort of maintaining. I wonder if
Sorry,
the reason...
can I? Yeah, I was going to ask, what is it? Is it, are you moved to their domain? You're still working on the Mindstream domain? What's changed?
Nothing has changed structurally. The only thing that has changed is that we are doing less ads. Like we don't do any ads now. Our kind of primary ad slots are generally used to promote HubSpot, and the way we promote HubSpot is by offering resources that people want to download. Then they become a lead for HubSpot, and someone else deals with converting those to a customer. So all of our ads now are like high value, high quality resources. And we're only running those ads in maybe 30 to 50% of our sends. So previously we had all these different advertisers, and we were very, very careful with our advertisement. I mean, we wouldn't take an advertiser's copy and put it into our newsletter. We would always edit it to remove like spam risk words like buy now or like offer or whatever. Like yeah. We were very, very careful with these advertisers, but even so, we were kind of playing this ping pong with deliverability. Like I say, that's settled now, and we still follow best practices. Matt and Maria still write the newsletter and make sure they're not using too many figures or whatever, all these things. But it's just something now that we spend almost no time thinking about because it just works all the time, and it's honestly glorious. I don't know if it's because we're not doing external advertisement. That's the only thing I can think. I guess the other thing is maybe we've just like reached a really nice level and we're sitting so far above the red line or whatever it is. I mean, generally we have very, very low spam rates, and our churn is kind of very healthy, as I mentioned earlier.
I could not be more jealous. You don't need to think about it. I think I will go grey in the next couple of years if I have to think more about deliverability. The thing you realize is no one understands it. It's like I speak to experts that have got 20 years of experience in email, and they're like, I haven't a clue why your deliverability is just screwed for this 1 week. I'm like, all right, great, cool. What do I do now?
Yeah. I mean, we used to like complain to Beehive about it all the time, and I actually got into like a long email conversation with Tyler, the CEO, about it, and it's so tough, man. It's so tough. So yeah, that was always the worst thing, and it's the worst thing because you're kind of banging your head against the wall trying to understand why, and like the horrible reality is there like isn't an answer. There's so many things you can do to optimize, but you know when you have an email go out and you can clearly see the deliverability is affected. You can complete a post-mortem and analyze everything and still not understand why. And that sucks.
Let's not complain about this too much because I could go on about this for 3 hours about email deliverability. I want to tie together the points leading up to the acquisition. Kind of hit me with the major points that led to that HubSpot acquisition. What was your first interaction? What kind of nurtured that relationship, and what led to the conversation where like you're sitting there one day and you're in a cafe and you receive an email and it's like HubSpot's like, we want to talk about buying Mindstream. What does that look like?
So HubSpot started advertising with us in February last year, and they were very happy with the results. You know, we were speaking to our contact who was looking after all of their placements, probably the same person that you talk to on a regular basis. And then after a couple of months, I just got an email from him saying, I want to introduce you to someone else from the organization who wants to talk about a long-term partnership. I jumped on that call, and they just said to me, yeah, like we want to buy Mindstream. We want to work together and make this an awesome brand. So it was like such a shock to me. We had that initial 30-minute call, and we discussed kind of their vision and asked me some questions about my vision for the company. I got off that call, and I couldn't think, I couldn't sleep. I was just so overwhelmed by the idea of it. The next day I woke up and I walked from Leamington to Birmingham. you're from the UK. I don't know if you can envision how far that is, but it was like 45 miles. And I just raw dogged this walk because I was like, I need to process these thoughts. No music, no phone, whatever. Just like put my head down and walked, and then jumped on the train and came back. And then after that process, I was like, okay, I've got some clarity. Let's start having these conversations, work out if it's the right thing for us, and go through the process. And we'd had a couple of other interested parties in acquiring the newsletter, but they wanted to basically buy us based on our business model and our revenue, and grow it and scale it and monetize it. So I was looking at being the CEO of a newsletter business that's trying to grow in exactly the same way. So it is, let's do the same thing. What HubSpot offered and what HubSpot do is they have a very, very smart way for monetizing media brands, in that the core reason for HubSpot Media Network having these media brands is to generate top of funnel and build trust and generate leads for HubSpot as a software. They have an amazing infrastructure, and our job is to just generate those leads, and then all that next steps is taken care of by other teams of people. So what HubSpot were able to offer me as an operator is I'm now able to focus on growing Mindstream and building Mindstream to just be the best product it can be for our target audience. I don't really have to worry too much about monetization as long as we're generating the right amount of leads. That's kind of as far as it goes for me. I don't have to look after those advertiser relationships anymore, which was a very, very large part of my job. And we don't have to gate anything. So I think a lot of AI newsletters are launching education platforms, whether it's like a university or communities or whatever, and they're like paywalling these things. So they almost have to compromise on what they can offer as their free content. We have freedom to do whatever we want to in the newsletter, and we can make the newsletter the best it can be without having to gate any of this stuff. And I think that really gives us a competitive advantage to newsletter operators that have to monetize through partnerships and advertisement and paywalling things.
Yeah, I have to say I'm jealous. You can spend 90% of your time focusing on product, right? And just enacting a vision, which is a beautiful thing to have. And I'm not usually a jealous person, but that does sound amazing. It does sound absolutely incredible.
It's very strange. I mean, my job is very, very different now, and it's so much more creative, which is really, really fun. And then the other benefits to it is we have in HubSpot Media, we have 200 amazing people who are doing really cool stuff, and I can go and chat to the people who are building out the podcast network, and I can chat to the people who are building out the YouTube network or operating on the blog. So I now have access to some of the brightest minds in media. And I genuinely think HubSpot are trendsetters in B2B media. I think they are crafting the sort of future of how software companies acquire customers. And it's so much fun to be a part of it.
Talk to me about the emotions for you when you were actually acquired. I've seen you describe this before as kind of a full circle moment. And you describe listening to My First Million, to the point where you build a brand that's then acquired by the network that acquired My First Million and introduced them there. I'm a big fan of the My First Million guys as well. So I'm really curious from your emotional perspective, what that feel like?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I'd say Sam Parr is probably the person out there who's had the biggest impact on me in terms of an influencer. So he founded The Hustle. The Hustle was acquired by HubSpot. And yeah, he's the host of My First Million. So, when I really, really got interested in entrepreneurship in 2020, it was kind of born out of listening to that podcast. Then when I came to start Mindstream, it was having listened to Sam's success with The Hustle and Shan's success to the Milk Road. listening to how they kind of built out those companies. For anyone who doesn't know, Shan Puri is the other host of My First Million, Sampar, with Sampar, and they kind of like almost built the Milk Road in public. And Shan would chat with Sam on the pod about how he was copying his hustle blueprint and doing it for crypto. And then when they had their exit, it was this is a great business podcast that is hosted by two newsletter operators. So it was such a big inspiration for me. It's kind of funny that then I went, or not funny, but almost obvious that that's the business I then decided to go and do. Lots of other things came together. My best friend being a copywriter, me spending time on LinkedIn and realizing I can use that as a growth source for the newsletter. So there's lots of things that came together. So then when we were acquired by HubSpot and almost followed in the footsteps of the hustle, you have to wonder if it's just like a hilarious coincidence or whether the sort of inspiration I took from Sam meant that we built such a similar company that HubSpot wanted to acquire us. I still don't know the answer to that, but it certainly was a full circle moment. And I'd actually met Sampar like 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks prior to closing the acquisition at the HubSpot's Inbound conference in Boston. So it's pretty funny to meet him. And I introduced myself. I said, I've built this AI newsletter. Very inspired by what you did with the hustle. But yeah, I wasn't allowed to talk about the acquisition because it wasn't done yet. So it's pretty funny to have that conversation a couple of weeks later, close on the deal.
Hilarious. Have you managed to speak to the team since?
I haven't spoke with Sam, but we work very closely with the hustle team, which is cool. There's some great people at the hustle. We work quite closely with them and the other kind of key newsletter in the HubSpot Media Network, which is Masters in Marketing, a marketing focused one. So we work very closely together. Very, very full circle moment. I tell you though, like the process of doing an acquisition is not a lot of fun. Like we were 7 months in negotiations, and that whole time I was like leading those negotiations, but also still trying to operate the business. And that's quite a strange position to be in because you're going through this process of this negotiation, but at the same time you're trying to operate the business in the right way. And I was very reluctant to make any big changes to how we were operating, in case it might like change the direction or derail the deal or anything like that. So it was a strange time. It was a long time. I think relatively quick in when you compare to like other acquisitions, but for me, day to day, it was a long time to get that done.
How did you figure out exactly what your value is? Because I'm assuming you've not went through a massive acquisition before. So how are you figuring out like what are we worth? What is this part of the business worth? How does this fit together? How do I structure a deal? You just asking ChatGPT questions? Do you have a mentor? What does that look like?
Yeah, we had our investor is a guy called Paul Ingram, seasoned entrepreneur. He currently runs a marketing agency and has quite serious investments in a few like very, very fast growing software startups. He's been involved in exits throughout his life. So he was very, very key for me in that process. And then, obviously using ChatGPT to analyze, looking at, there's been quite a few exits in this space. So you're able to kind of look at, obviously the hustle, Morning Brew, the Milk Road, and other exits, and kind of analyze at least what you thought that they sold for, and how many subscribers they had, and how much revenue you thought they had. So you can kind of picture pieces like that together and put it into place.
Coming into HubSpot's network, meeting their people, gaining access to their culture, because I'd love if you could delineate the difference between like HubSpot, the company, and this kind of like AI entrepreneurship team, the media team they have as well. What is your experience about like kind of being welcomed into that community? What does that look like? What are the weekly calls like? Give us a bit of an insight behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's funny. It's very strange going from like a leader of a small startup to being part of an organization with thousands of people. The sort of transition was a lot of fun. So I mentioned we were at HubSpot's Inbound conference. This was a couple of weeks before we closed, but at that conference, I got to meet like a lot of the team, a lot of the people that we'd be working with. I mean, like Inbound in itself is just awesome. It shows you, or really opened my eyes up to how big HubSpot is and how much and how sort of wide it is. And yeah, we had like a lot of fun in Boston, working with that team. And then a couple of weeks after that, we headed out to New York, and we got to sit in a room with all of the people who are involved in the acquisition, and all of the people who'd be involved in like running this part of the business moving forward. And we spent just like a day working on like, the planning of the transition, and then like where we wanted to take the brand moving forward. And in that room, there's just some awesome like creative people. There's people who are like badass with numbers, people that are badass with like brand and creativity and operational stuff. So it was like just like the ultimate like newsletter geek out that I had with loads of people who were excited about the project. So it's so much fun to just like really dig deep into like how we're going to build the brand. And then coming into the day to day, my role has changed a little bit. So now I'm in charge of marketing for the brand, as well as sort of kind of the newsletter operations. And then Matt has gone, and he's sort of sitting in another department, very much in charge of editorial. So like I mentioned earlier, I get to be like creative 90% of the time and work on like different ways to market the brand and the wider network. So that's a lot of fun. It's very interesting to see how a company like HubSpot operates. I mean, it's a very well-regarded company. It wins awards regularly on being like a great place for employees. And me being an employee, like I get to kind of go through that process of seeing how HubSpot makes a great place to work. So, we have like great ethos, great culture, great benefits. I mean, like the other day, I had a first session of business coaching. That's like a benefit that's applied to all HubSpot employees. So I've got like 10 of them now booked in over the next few weeks. So much fun to just like nerd out with someone on how I'm going to like grow my career and stuff like that. And we have kind of enterprise access to like so many AI tools. We have regular AI training. We have engagement in like Slack channels of people encouraged to like kind of share their workflows and what they're working on and how they're using AI tools. So there's this huge push from leadership all the way down, from CEO Yamini to coming like all the way down through to me of, how can we use AI to improve our workflows? And in my team, in HubSpot Media, we're really trying to be the most AI literate. Like, it's a little competition we kind of set ourselves. So it's a lot of fun. I get to build things. I get to work on marketing the brand, and I get to kind of nerd out even more about AI than I think I probably used to when I was day in, day out, like hustling and building the business.
Where do you see yourself or Mindstream in the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years?
I think that Mindstream will become more and more and more valuable over time to the employee and SMB. At the moment, I think we are one of the best newsletters in finding out what's going on in the world and curating that and putting it into an accessible format to kind of educate someone on AI. I think that in 3 to 5 years, we will become the most actionable AI newsletter in the world, where you are no longer kind of skimming Mindstream to see what's cool and interesting. In the world of AI, it's hitting your inbox and you're stopping everything you're doing because you know that there's going to be something in there that's going to kind of make an incremental change in your operations. That's my long-term future that's my long-term vision for editorial of Mindstream. And we have a really kind of aligned goal across everyone involved. That's how we bring the most value for our reader, and also how we make the most value for HubSpot, in terms of curating those readers that are the ones actually in companies building, who then might go on and implement HubSpot into their work. For myself, I have like an amazing opportunity at HubSpot to learn more about marketing at its core, brand, culture, ethos, operation, And I'm excited for the next couple of years to just like get my head down and really kind of soak up all of those learnings, working with like honestly some of the smartest people in media. I am an entrepreneur at heart, and I'm going to be like busy building things on the side because that's what I do. My partner Hannah, she has just left her job to come and work with me on my various side projects. So we're working away on building things out. Lots of opportunities are coming my way, especially now that I'm in the position I'm in. So yeah, I can't wait to kind of like dig into those, build some cool things, whilst continuing to learn from HubSpot. At the same time, my personal brand has been a big thing for me. I've got almost 200,000 followers on LinkedIn, I think. I'm so excited about the future of LinkedIn as a creator channel. I'm so excited in the opportunity of LinkedIn as a B2B marketing channel for big companies working with influencers. I think I would like to be a part of shaping that and seeing how that evolves. So really excited to be seeing, what like David Walsh is doing with Limelight, what Lindsay Rosenthal is about to launch. I can't remember the name of it, but I know you spoke with her recently about her new company. So I'm excited to see what happens there. And I really want to take my personal brand to a really solid level. So I'm spending a lot of time working out, where does my personal brand fit into everything as the operator of Mindstream and the founder, and how do I provide the most value for that audience, which is similar but separate to Mindstream. Is it in talking mostly about AI implementation? Is it about talking about entrepreneurship, marketing, brand, a combination of all of the above? So yeah, I'll be working on that over the next few years as well.
It's a great opportunity for us to transition to AI in general and trends. So I think 2024, 2023, the years of kind of GPTs, 25, we're looking at like agents. You'd mentioned a bunch of these kind of side projects and opportunities. I was wondering, one, if maybe you can go into what you're working on, and if you can't, what you kind of think the big things are going to be in AI for 2025, 2026 and beyond. What do you think the biggest areas for opportunity are?
So the thing that really excites me about AI is the wider implementation of AI across teams and organizations. We kind of touched on this earlier. Like, there's so much going on at the cutting edge, and I think it's very exciting to follow what's going on at the cutting edge and see how people are kind of making those implementable changes. And like, I see some stuff that's like really excites me, especially with everything going on with agents at the moment now. I see someone who's created like a whole video game from AI, or like building a website in seconds with AI. And for a kind of a small subset of people, the opportunity is chasing the cutting edge. I think a huge opportunity is in helping operators apply AI across their organization and making like 10% of gains for tens of millions, billions of people. That's where I'm really excited. And I think you kind of need to step back and look at the whole scope of AI usage to really kind of see that opportunity. If I was a startup founder now who is trying to make a SaaS, I would focus on there's this idea of like ChatGPT wrap companies. And there was loads of them that came out in like 2023, and then like 2 months later, the thing that they were working on, ChatGPT would make its own functionality, and these companies would drop off. I think now the technology is becoming less and less of a moat because of how AI is enabling like non-technological people to develop technological solutions. So I think that there is an amazing opportunity for startup founders to go and take AI technologies, put an amazing UX wrap around it, and distribute it for like a very unique audience that is going to be not going to be targeted by too many people. If you look at like real estate operators, or if you look at like long haul shipping across oceans, or like find some industry like this. Or if you're from this industry, look at the problems that you're having now, and then try and find a way that AI can solve for them. And I think if you create just an amazing UX and like core business fundamentals of customer service, like great sales operations and all these sorts of things, but have AI technology in the background, that for me is really, really exciting. And I think that's achievable for the average entrepreneur. That's where I would be focusing if you're looking to build a company, build a software company in 2025.
Interesting. You touched on a few interesting points, and you kind of mentioned Mindstream's vision just in a little conversation as well, that you were really looking to provide these like practical insights. And it's very much what we're focused on as well. So expect some competition. All right, I'll get my fists up, but it's very much what we're focused on as well. It's like, it's all good and well, and there's lots of people talking about AGI, what the future holds and what this does. But it's like, the majority of people do not care unless it's like, how does it impact me? How does it impact my business? How does it impact the bottom line? How do I make more money, save more time, make my employees happier, make my business run more efficiently, right? If you're not answering those questions, then I don't know how useful that information can be beyond just entertainment. And I think one of the beautiful things as well is like a kind of common thread of this conversation, and I just wanted to kind of touch on it with us as a business. The way we think about our entire ecosystem and infrastructure is that we aren't an AI company, then we're not an AI company. What we are is an education company, right? And if you position yourself as an education company, then you're always one step beyond the ChatGPT wrappers, one step beyond all the software coming out, because all you're doing is just taking all that information and educating and teaching about it.
Yeah, I agree. I had a conversation with a kind of entrepreneur founder friend of mine who's building like a cool he's building a cool solution for like a very niche problem. The company is called Rupert AI. It's named after his dog. And they've created this software platform where Facebook advertisers, like people advertising on Meta, can see all of the comments that are sitting under their Facebook ads in like this dashboard. And there's this like huge sort of problem with the way that Facebook advertising works, where there's no sort of onus or focus on the comments that are sitting under your paid ads. And you could have a paid ad saying like, buy this toothpaste or whatever, and then you got like the top 5 comments under that are like, I bought this and it's crap, or it didn't turn up, or whatever. And that's like obviously hugely affecting sales, but nobody is focusing on this. So he's built this software where if you have a negative comment land on your Facebook ad, it quarantines it, so it pulls it straight away off the Facebook comment, and then you can go in as the operator and see this dashboard and like use AI that's kind of trained on your tone of voice and stuff to reply to these comments, because like a negative comment replied to in the right way can actually be a positive thing. So the tool he's bought, Rupert, is great, and they're growing. But it was branded as an AI tool, like it's Rupert.ai, and it's like, we are AI to help you with your commenting. And we were having a chat about it the other day, going, discussing the positioning of it, and the media buyer who kind of realizes that comments are a problem and wants a solution for it doesn't really care if it's AI. They just want a tool that works. So positioning this tool as an AI company, I think, I sort of suggested to him might be a mistake. And I think that a lot of operators are doing this. They're going, okay, I want to go and solve for a problem. How do I use AI to solve that problem? Now, that is the right question to ask. But are you an AI company, or are you just a software company using the latest technology? It's like 2-3 years ago, everything was smart, smart fridge, smart watch, smart whatever. And like, if you're kind of just using the technology that everyone else is it really that smart, or is it just a watch, at that point? So yeah, I think you got to be careful about calling yourself an AI company. if you are just using AI to as part of your kind of offering.
You could probably very easily get stuck in that kind of engineering mindset where you're like an engineering led team for a startup where you're like, oh, this product is good, thus people will use it. It's like, it's not really how it works. I think maybe us as kind of newsletter operators and marketers have had a very unique experience with communicating with hundreds of thousands of people every day for a period of 2 years, where you kind of get an insight of like what people react to natively and like what makes people tick, what they want, what they don't want, because you're placing ads every day as well. So you see what people react to, what they don't react to, and it really builds that intuition over a long time to where you could just be like, I know whether this is going to work or not work based on the positioning alone.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah.
I am conscious of time. I know we've got 8 minutes left, so I want to rapid fire through some questions quickly, if that sounds good to you.
Let's do it.
So something we discussed beforehand that we wanted to cover really quickly, and I wanted to have more time, but you've distracted me with such great conversation that we've got not enough time for it. But we were talking about kind of like Chinese AI models like DeepSeek and Manus, and like all the hype about it. And people saying like, right, this is going to take over. And then 2 weeks later, like not many people are using DeepSeek. What's your kind of thoughts on that? The importance of brand, IP, reputation amongst all these new AI models and tools being released?
Yeah. So in general, I have a huge fatigue of kind of disastrous AI headlines. You see it from like the models, like, you know, new update for ChatGPT is launched. It's the end of Claude, and then a week later, new update for Claude launch. It's the end of ChatGPT, and then yeah, you have these AI models that are dropping that maybe a lot cheaper, with better output than what you're kind of being delivered by OpenAI or whatever. And I think for the for this type of person we've been talking about all throughout this podcast, this must be just like so overwhelming. They might be kind of using ChatGPT, maybe using a bit of Perplexity or Claude as well, and then it's like, oh, I need to go and move to this other model that kind of at its core does the same thing. You do see every now and then there's an update where someone's doing something different, but then it quickly gets caught up by all the other models. So it's like, I quite like the comparison to cars. If you just bought yourself a brand new BMW and you're really enjoying it, and it's taking you from A to B, which is the core of what it's supposed to do. And then Audi is going to drop a new car that's like 1 second faster, like in its 0 to 60 or whatever. You can still get from A to B with your BMW, and it can still be a very, very, very nice experience. You're not gonna jump the first time someone releases something better. And when I was working in semiconductor sales, like 2-3 years ago, everything was about electric cars. The ultimate goal for me as a semiconductor distributor was to get a contract with an electric car maker or a charging station maker or whatever. So I was very, very focused on this industry, and I'd go to all these conferences, and everybody would tell me that Chinese made cars were the future. And in 10 years time, in 5 years time, you're not going to see an American, a German, an English made car on the road. And I'm still waiting for this. Maybe it's going to come, but when I go out on my road, I see once every 6 months, I'll see a Chinese made car. So I think that when you're looking in the mind of the consumer, there is so much to consider. And I think a lot of these like disastrous headlines assume that price is the only factor, and it's not. So my message. Go on.
So I was going to say something I always tie it to instead of cars is phones. There's 1,000 Androids out there that are faster, more efficient, better cameras, better UI, better screen than an iPhone, but people do not care. An iPhone is more convenient, it's more familiar, the IP, the reputation is there, the ecosystem's there. People do not care about these incremental improvements. Like, brand is so important.
Phones is a great one. I used a Chinese phone brand for a while. I won't say which one it is, but I would buy a brand new phone every year, and it would cost me 300, 400 quid. And it was the kind of breaking neck of technology, and they were great, and I loved them. And then I bought the next one, and it didn't work. it just didn't work. And I went, oh, okay, well, I know the iPhone's going to work, so I'll go and buy myself an iPhone. Like that one bad experience turned me off completely, and I've been stuck with iPhone since. So, yeah, my message again to that to you, if you are just trying to get from 0 to 1, 1 to 2 with AI. Don't worry about all these new models that are kind of dropping all the time, or the race to be the best model. Like they can all help you in your work. You're better off probably spending some good time with one and really starting to learn that UX and starting to learn the way that one takes your prompts and the outputs you get from it. And just double down and work. If you go with ChatGPT or Claude, they're going to be around for a long time and they're going to keep getting better. And if there is a new technological advance that's dropped by one of the competitors, it's going to be a few weeks until that model catches up.
One final question, and let's do it quickly because I know we've got 3 minutes before we're going to hop off. I ask the same question to everyone that I podcast with, and I refuse to give any more context once I ask it. Why do you do what you do?
I am happiest when I am building things, and I'm pretty damn miserable when I'm doing anything else. And I loved building Mindstream, and I'm very grateful that as an employee with HubSpot, I'm encouraged to keep building, and I'm grateful that I have the energy inside me to keep building things on the side. And I'm very grateful to my partner Hannah, who's made the decision to leave the public sector and come and work for me, so we can build stuff together.
Awesome. Adam, I really, really appreciate your time. It's been an amazing conversation.
Been a lot of fun, Liam. Thank you.